Don't know if I did it correct. Okay, cool. Evan, what's up, man? Good to connect
What's up, my
finally.
brother? I know, dude. It's
I'm like
been
fair,
we.
yeah, I'm like fairly technologically impaired, so I'm like I did a live already, a couple of them, but I always manage to mess something up like every single time. So I'm like, okay, so I'm happy that I got it going so fast this time.
It's so temperamental, dude.
Yeah, but it's great to have you on and great to connect finally. I know we've been kind of chatting back and forth for quite a while in like the Matrix Inner Space Network, but it's good to finally kind of see you as well. And I know you have like a book that's authored, and you're kind of having a live this Saturday as well. So I'll let like people know on the live as well, so they can kind of join your group. But I was thinking like today, honestly, it would be nice just to kind of get to know you in a lot more detail and just to have kind of like coffee shop talk that's not too structured.
Hmm.
And I was thinking overnight, like a great topic that I can cover with you that I think you would be a perfect person for. And it's definitely like a loaded question that can go like a couple of different ways. And as you know, these days in America, it's very tough to find like a healthy person, with 9 out of 10 people, 9 out of 10 Americans being metabolically unhealthy currently. And of course, Americans, contrary, they're not like, in my opinion, lazy. They're actually like very hardworking
Mm.
people as compared to a lot of countries I've gone to for sure. And I find they are putting in like a lot of work, but a lot of work into like various degrees of symptom management strategies. They're
Mm.
going to these boot camps, they're taking this medical drug and doing this fad diet and that fad diet, which takes a lot of effort, sometimes takes a lot of money as well. And you really kind of like rarely see anyone ever really resolve their issue. Whether it's
Mm.
weight, they may lose it and they may regain it. If it's depression, they may feel a little bit better for a bit and then they go back to being depressed, or another symptom comes up. And I find like one of the biggest obstacles that people neglect to do, which is the most impactful, is actually changing the person and the belief system that led them to problem ABC. And I was
Mm.
just wondering if you can kind of like expand on that, and give your opinions on what you've been seeing from your end, and what people can do to kind of create like real change and stop kind of running around in circles in symptom management approaches to healthcare.
Oh, dude, love that. I love that. This topic, this vein. Um, I believe 1000% what you just said is true. It's true. You're trying, if you're trying a diet, if you're trying a workout program, if you're trying a New Year's resolution, you're putting band-aids on the fucking real problem, which is essentially your belief system, your subconscious belief matrix that makes up how you are in the world, how you show up in the world, your relationship with yourself and your relationship with other people. All of the pain you've experienced, the traumas, the damage, all of it, that's resulted in this person that shows up here today in this moment, who has all of these issues, is overweight, is depressed, is unmotivated, doesn't have the ability to make real change in their life, gets going for a month or two and then stops and regains the weight and does all the stuff, etc. You're, you're a check guy, right?
I have taken a few courses at Czech Institute, which I would definitely recommend for anyone
Yeah,
that wants real solutions that are not easy to do, but would actually provide you real solutions. That's a good place to check out.
yeah. I love that, and I love everything you do, man.
Thank
I
you.
really, I resonate with your philosophy, your programs, how you go about taking people through a transformational process. And for me, I think I was really lucky because I'm a lifetime athlete and I come from this family of athletes where and in that, for for me that means essentially that I come from a stock of people who understand that the body, the physical realm, is and can always be a platform of transcendence, of transformation. And what I mean by that is you can work yourself out of and through mental and emotional states through your physical body. So I've always had that grace. My mom started taking me to yoga when I was 10 years old. My mom's a master healer, body worker, yoga therapist. It's difficult to actually put into terms what exactly my mom does, other than she's a master intuitive healer who's backed up her own instinctual ability to heal people with cadaver study, decades and decades of research, study, and academic work, you know. And that's just only to say that because that just speaks to, this is where I'm coming from. I've learned everything I've learned and come to know and understand. The base layer of my own education and my own process started with my mother and her own life's journey in healing and recovery and alcoholism and 12-step programs and Al-Anon and all of this stuff. And, you know, for me, man, to get back to your question, when I came out of the NFL, is the blower outside? Can you hear that? Is it loud? Can you hear it at all?
No,
Okay, good.
I'm
I
at
just
home
wanted
too,
to.
and the girlfriend's talking in the other office. I take it
Oh,
you
no,
can't hear her, right?
no, I
Okay,
can.
good.
It's good. All right, perfect. So when I came out of football, and I found myself mentally, emotionally, and physically destroyed, having to really start from scratch and put myself back together again. I left the Chicago Bears. I was 330 pounds. I was tired. I was depressed. I was beat to shit. I had back surgery, shoulder surgery, torn ligaments all over my body. My last year in Chicago, as a perhaps last minute or last ditch effort by the universe to tell me maybe to change, maybe it was time that football was over. My appendix ruptured. Had all of these injuries, this laundry list of injuries, concussions, all this stuff, and I found myself just completely at rock bottom. And the first thing I did was get my physical health in order. That was the first, because going back to being an athlete, coming from this lineage of athletes and yogis and people who really understand the physical body and the importance of physical well-being. And that was my foundational layer. So I got my body in order. I'd always wanted to be fit and lean. I'd spent my life as an offensive lineman. And I was always one of the, it was always a task for me to stay up above 310 pounds. So I got this opportunity to change my body and get my body into physical order. And I got my body into physical order through yoga, weights. I'd spend, 2-3 hours at the weight room, classic stories of just like my life became my workout. But what I really quickly realized was, like, after a 3-hour workout, there's still a lot of the day left. And I'm still there with myself. Like, I haven't gone anywhere, and
I know
and I
that
got,
feeling.
yeah, dude. And I
There's a
got,
funny meme. There's a funny meme of like a bodybuilder like laying on the beach. He looks all sad, and he's like, "How I feel after my workout is done in the morning, the rest of the day."
yeah, it's brutal, man. It's a brutal feeling. And that is essentially a symptom of not addressing this inner thing that's happening, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what we want to call it. Your soul speaking to you, yourself saying, hey, I need to be fucking acknowledged here. I'm in
Mm.
pain. I grew up in a family that was heavily affected by the disease of alcoholism, and because of football, thank God, by the grace of football, I didn't have to look at any of that stuff until I got out of the NFL. And then all of a sudden it was like this fucking tidal wave is crashing over me. And I had no choice but to go, fuck, I'm unhappy. Fuck, I'm stuck. Fuck, I don't know who I am. I don't know where to go. What's the next move? And it really culminated in watching myself scream into the phone at my ex-wife saying, I'm going to kill myself or I'm going to kill somebody. As I drove on the on-ramp to go, to this CBD company I had started out in Chatsworth. And by the time I got to the office there, I sat down. I'm choked with shame, with guilt, with sadness. And the phone rings, and it's my mom. And she says, "Eb, how you doing?" I'm like, I can barely speak. I can barely speak. And she says, "Eb, why don't you come over for dinner?" I'm like, "All right, Mom, come over for dinner." Go to dinner. It's my mom, it's my Aunt Martha, her twin sister, it's my brother Gus. And, they just start talking about our family disease of alcoholism and how that affects how we show up in the world and the behavioral mechanisms that get created while coming up through that type of household. You say, "Yeah, we've got tools for this. There's these things. It's called 12-step programs." And I had grown up going to AA. However, for me, it was never about the alcohol. I never had, as we say in the program, and Al-Anon in particular, I didn't have a drinking disease. I had a thinking disease.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that time, my brother had been going to this all-men's Al-Anon meeting and said, "Eb, why don't you come with me? Why don't you come with me?" So I went to this first meeting. It's all men, Al-Anon meeting here in LA, 12-step program. I walk into that room completely draped in shame and shit and darkness and choked with all the feelings that I've never once taken a moment to acknowledge. And this guy starts to share, and he just starts to share about his life and his childhood. And it was like he was talking about my childhood and being a little kid and not ever feeling safe and needing to take care of his brother and his sister and needing to be the one who kept everybody safe and needed to be the peace bringer and was responsible for everybody's feelings and was codependent on how everybody else was doing to make himself feel okay, just as these myriad blankets of pulling over himself so that he didn't have to acknowledge how much pain he was in. I was like, that was me. That was my life. That was me up until that, walking into that room. That was the epitome of my life, walking into that room. And so I just spent the next hour basically bursting into tears. And by the time I walked out of that room, it was like the sun came through the clouds, the sky had opened up. I felt like I could breathe for the first time in 30 years. And it was the beginning of this process of me starting to look at myself, me starting to acknowledge what was going on inside of me. And that led me into talk therapy. It led me into meditation, which led me to plant medicine and back to yoga. And little by little, man, I just started going in. And I started acknowledging all of this pain inside of me. And all this shit, these feelings of self-worth. I'm not good enough. This low hum fear that's constantly present, going, "Eb, you're not good enough, man." The driving force of my football career, man. Let me show the fucking world how big and powerful and to be feared I am. Let me show the world. Let me prove to them how fucking scary I am every day out on that football field. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not good enough. I don't deserve love. I don't deserve good things. All of this shit, man. It just started I started looking at it and seeing it and recognizing it and feeling it and starting to develop this. It wasn't quite there yet, because I would have to say, if I'm being really honest, only up until about 2 months ago, I made the utter decision. I made the conscious decision that whatever is happening inside of me, I'm going to love and accept it. And it's been a slow trickle process, one day at a time, one moment at a time, one breath at a time, but constantly the work, man. I had this thought earlier. We've got to do our homework. What's our homework? Our homework is this constant self-study. It's this constant self-study. You're constantly acknowledging what's happening inside of you, because what do we do instinctually? What do we do when something arises inside of us that we don't like, that we don't want to admit, that we don't want to acknowledge? We fucking run the other way. We do everything we can to get away from it. What do? We overeat. We eat the shit. Binge food. We binge porn. We binge social media. We binge fucking couch. We binge TV. Binge alcohol. We binge drugs to cover up all this shit that we don't want to fucking look at. That's too much. It's too much, because that thing that came up inside of me, that thing is not who I think I am. It's not who I'm supposed to be. Luna, come here. Come here.
No, it's okay. Everyone knows this is work from home. So what goes with work from home? Kids in the background,
Luna,
dogs.
hey, with me. Good girl.
I get a cup of coffee.
You know, and Luna, I started to come to terms with myself, man. I started to reconcile all of this, because, dude, that's all you. That's all us. That was all me. All of that shit that I didn't like, that I didn't want to see, that was too much for me to bear for so long. That's the shit right there, dude. That's the shit. That's who you are. That's everything you are right there. And once you start to acknowledge that and love that stuff too, all these things, they just start to fall away. It's interesting, you know? And we're no longer putting Band-Aids on things. We're no longer putting Band-Aids on things. We're starting to live from our center. We're starting to live from the ground, from the bottom of ourselves, where we can actually start to build. Can you hear me okay?
How's the sound, you guys? I hear you really well.
Okay.
Some person said
Great.
to turn up the sound. Maybe that person, you might need to turn up the sound on your phone.
All right.
I don't know who it was. It's okay.
Well, we can, and by acknowledging yourself, it's really a strange thing. It's a strange thing that happens. We actually, all of these addictions, these patterns, they start to fall away. They start to fall away. And we start to live from our truth, from our core essence. And we start to take care of ourselves. Our lifestyle starts to change. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned like a lot of actually important topics, and I've listed some of them here. If we could just rewind a little bit, because I think a lot of people can relate to this. Um, you mentioned, like a lot of like the pain teacher had to come around in various forms for you to finally kind of give up on football. And maybe a lot of people can't relate to that kind of lifestyle of being a professional football player, but you see that in all facets of life. You have like the 45-year-old director of a company that's like 40 pounds overweight on like 8 different medications, has terrible low back pain,
Yeah.
terrible life with the family or whatever, no balance with the family life. And they're obviously, I feel like, especially with work culture in America, it's like so fast paced, and it's kind of more over the mentality of like, if you're not like dying for your job, you're not doing your job almost, maybe it's not directly stated that way, but it's kind of implied. What kind of challenges did you run into in terms of now looking back in retrospect of like, oh man, look at all these red flags. I should have seen them coming like a million miles away. And then what kind of kept you on that path, even though, you're having all these surgeries and maybe in the back of your head, you're like, oh man, I don't know how sustainable this is. If you could, if that is even relevant to your situation.
No, it's a great question, dude. And the first question is one that I toil with at times. However, the answer that emerges is always the same, which is I was doing the best I could with what I had at that time. The knowing that I had, the understanding that I had, I was doing the best I could. So those red flags, it takes some time to recognize a red flag. It really does. It takes some time, especially for whatever reason in this life, in this dimension where we've been incarnated. One of my great mentors in Life After Football said to me, Ed, we can evolve pain or through insight. However, in this place that we find ourselves currently, it's pretty fucking difficult, if not impossible, to evolve through insight alone. And so pain becomes the ultimate evolution catalyst. Pain becomes the ultimate catalyst for change. And that has certainly been true in my life. That's certainly been true in my journey through football. And so I look back, I go, could I have done it differently? Could I have pulled the ripcord sooner? Yeah, maybe I could have. However, at that time, dude, I believed I was this fucking warrior. I believed, man, I ruptured a disc in my back, L5S1, going into my second season in Jacksonville. We're doing what's the air pressure machine?
This must have been from a long time ago where they had
You'd hit the button.
Yeah. Oh man, that was like from the 80s or 90s probably. I don't see those in gyms anymore at all, or at least the gyms I go to.
We had a lot of these fucking machines in Jacksonville, and we used to do these like power squats. Load up the machine with 1,000 pounds of pressure, drop down, explode up. And so doing this one day, I wasn't fucking prepared. I was fucking goofing around, talking shit with a teammate, doing something I shouldn't have been doing. I was not giving the exercise the respect it deserved. I went in, dropped down, feel this tube of toothpaste squirt right in my right butt cheek, and that's my disc exploding. And I'm like, holy shit, what the fuck is that? And I write about this in the book, and I came out of the machine, and it felt like I had been ripped in half and put back with my torso on backwards. And the guy I was partnered with was like, dude, what was that? Are you okay? I was like, I have no idea. I thought I pulled my glute. I thought I like tore my hamstring off the bone. I couldn't tell what happened. Me being who I was, team captain, leader, fucking, I'm the top of the mountain, dude. I'm the guy that coaches look to set the example. We're going outside to run sprints. You better believe I'm going to beat every fucking guy on the team in these sprints that we're about to run. Go out there, maybe second or third one, I pull my hamstring for real because I'm pushing through it. And here I don't even realize I have a herniated disc. That was the last workout before we left for vacation, before training camp. I go into the trainer's office. They're looking at the hamstring. They're like, yeah, you pulled your hamstring. But I'm like, something else going on. They do a couple tests. They're like, yeah, you herniated a disc. Little did they know it was completely ruptured. So your discs are like little jelly donuts. Your discs are like these little jelly donuts. And inside of them is this goo when they're really healthy. They're supple and they're nice and they're cushiony. And so I had literally that bitch, squirted this gel out, which was squirting onto my sciatic nerve. And this gel is also highly toxic. It's highly acidic. So it burns. There's a burning effect that comes with the pressure that it's placing on the sciatic nerve, which was now beaming down my right leg into my right toes, making my right toes completely numb. So why am I telling you this story? So
the pain teacher.
There, what do I do? I'm the starting right tackle of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I've just had an unbelievable spring OTAs practice. My teammates are literally calling me the golden child because I can do no wrong. Like coaches come in, they're like, Eb, you look good. Eb, you look fucking good. I had a stellar off season training with my guy, who I basically trained with all through school and college, who was part of the Nigerian Olympian powerlifting team. His name's Moji Alua. Shout out to Moji. And I go for vacation and I'm a wreck. I've got this sciatic nerve pain, dude. I'm a wreck. I wake up every morning, I'm miserable. I'm in so much pain. I have no power in my right leg. I feel like my torso was ripped off my lower body and put on backwards. I feel like I'm literally twisted in the wrong direction. I can't do anything. Stretching is excruciating.
Mm-hmm.
And still I'm pushing through the pain every day. I'm out at the family lake house doing weight workouts, you know, in the wilderness, fucking doing everything I can because that's who I am. I'm a fucking warrior. Come back for the season, training camp starts. I'm a shell of myself. Starting at right tackle, coaches are going, Eb, what's the deal, man? What happened to you? I'm like, I don't know. I got this disc. They'd have me, my head coach, Jack Del Rio, would come to me and be like, Eb, if you got to just lie down on your back in the meeting room, go ahead, lie down on your back. Because he had a herniated disc and he knew what I was going through. He was like, Eb, whatever you got to do, just take care of yourself. Like, get yourself so that you can play on Sundays. So I'm waking up at 4:30 in the morning. I get to the facility by 5:30. I'm in the training room getting worked on every day for like 8 weeks. Then, by the grace of God, we're in Kansas City playing the Chiefs. I'm popping all sorts of pills. I'm popping, you know, Vicodin, Adderall, whatever I can get my hands on to get myself through this game. I'm starting at right tackle. I'm going up against fire-breathing dragons. The best athletes in the world are playing defensive end on NFL football teams. Last drive before the end of the first half, or no, sorry, rewind. We're going in for a touchdown. It's midway through the second quarter. Going in for a touchdown. We're playing the Chiefs. They run a 3-4, so I'm playing right tackle. I've got a head-up tackle on me. Then there's an outside linebacker. On this particular play, I'm punching up through that D tackle's outside shoulder, working my way up to the middle linebacker. I do that, take my step, punch through, get up to the middle linebacker. My feet get caught up in this tidal wave of bodies. I end up going down, land on my elbow on a right angle, shoulder dislocates. I don't realize it until I get up. I get up, my shoulder's out of the socket. I pop it back in, finish the drive. We score a touchdown. I come out. I'm on the sideline. I go to our trainer. I'm like, dude, I just dislocated my shoulder. I need you to go get me a shoulder harness ASAP because we're about to go back out for a 2-minute drill here. He's looking at me like, he's like, should I get the I'm like, bro, hurry the fuck up because we're about to get back on the field in about 2 minutes. We're going to be on the field for this 2-minute drill. So I need that shoulder harness ASAP. He runs, comes back. It's like a NASCAR wheel change. Throw my pads off, straps his shoulder harness on, pads are on. I'm grabbing my helmet as we're running back on the field for a 2-minute drill. Second play of the 2-minute drill, I'm going against Mike Vrabel, current head coach of the Tennessee Titans. I pass set him, go to punch with my right arm. He swipes it, knocks it down. My shoulder comes back out of the socket. The shoulder harness and my shoulder's out of the socket. I can't get it back in this time. So I got to run off the field, tapping my helmet the whole way. My sub comes running on. I'm running off. I sit down on the bench. It takes 3 team doctors about 5 minutes to get my shoulder back into the socket. They're like, Ed, can we get you into the locker room? We could lie you down. I'm like, fuck no. Just get it the fuck back in. Finally, they get it in. I feel it grind back in. The labrum's down. It's just like, it's shredded. Grind. I feel all that, bone to bone, grinds back into the socket. They're like, Ed, you're done for the day. Let's get you in, get you showered. We'll get you some meds to cool it down. I go in, take my shower, put on my sweats. I've got this shoulder harness on. I walked back out onto the field. I've got a massive dip of tobacco in my lip, on all kinds of pills. I'm looking out on the field, watching the second half, and I'm going, I'll be ready for Dallas next week. I'll be ready to roll. And then after the game, I go into the training room, and the team doc says, Ab, I can't let you play. I got to shut you down for the year. You got to have season-ending shoulder surgery. It's the only thing. I can't clear you to play. I burst into tears. It was the first time in my career that anybody had told me I couldn't play because of a physical injury that I had taken on. So I say all of that because even through that, man, I came back from the shoulder injury, had to spend the next year coming back from the back injury, had back surgery, came back, was playing at really an all-pro level, the best football of my life, 11 weeks after the back surgery, because we never fixed the herniated disc when my shoulder got injured.
Mm-hmm.
Come back from the back surgery, 11 weeks after surgery, I'm fucking bawling, kicking ass. Wake up in the hotel in Pittsburgh. We're playing the Steelers, and I can barely get out of bed. My back is completely seized up in a back spasm. I'm like, not even tripping, dude. I'll pop these pills. I'll be ready to roll by game time. Get to the stadium, immediately go to the training room, get down on the table, throws a heat pack on me, starts working the Theragun, opening me up, warming me up on the hamstring, on the glute, on the low back. I go to get myself, after about 45 minutes of work, I mean, at this point, I've got to get taped. I've got to start getting ready to play. I can barely push myself up off the table. I go, I'm like, no worries. I lay down in front of my locker to do a couple back stretches, close my eyes, open my eyes. There's my head coach, offensive coordinator, offensive line coach looking down on me to go, Ed, you going to be good to go? And I'm like, yeah. And I tried to get up. I couldn't get up off the floor. Like, all right, Ed, you're sitting down. You're sitting down. You need a week off. You've been busting your ass. You've been kicking ass since you had your back surgery, came back. You were full out, all out for the last 2.5 months. You just need a break. We're going to rest you this week. Said, okay. I'm there on the sidelines watching the game, not really sure what's going on because I'm just, again, it's out of my hands, but my body is just not cooperating. Even then, dude, I'm thinking, I'll be back. No big deal. I'll be back. After about 2 MRIs in like a few weeks, it's revealed I have a infection in the disc that happened post-surgery. So now I got to go on 8 weeks of intravenous antibiotics. This is going into my last year in Jacksonville. And once again, man, I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to be back out there. I'm going to be starting. And because of this idea of who I was, I'm a fucking warrior. This is what I do. I will die on that field. Before the idea of giving up ever crosses my mind, or like I'm done playing this sport. That took a few more years. It took three more years. That season, that last season in Jacksonville, and then 2 more seasons in Chicago, where the business of football, my body, my energy had all come to the place where I'm sitting in the film room watching myself in practice going, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? That was after my appendix ruptured, which you can go back and listen to that story. I've told enough of these football stories. I'm sitting there man, and I'm in pain from the top of my head to my big toes. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing here? What am I trying to prove? Like, I'm sitting here popping pills just to sit in this chair to watch this film. I'm in so much pain. This coach behind me, God bless him, he doesn't really give a fuck, dude. He doesn't give a fuck. If I walked out of here today, he'd just find a younger
Hmm.
guy to pop in my place, who's cheaper, who's got less wear and tear on the tires. And it's all good. That's the business of the game. That's what it is. But what am
Yeah.
I doing here now? When I had that thought of there's 1,000 places I'd rather be than this room playing this game, I knew I was done. I knew I was done.
Yeah. And
You
I
can't
find,
play you can't play football at that level if you've got one foot in the door.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So, long way to answer your question. I had to hit complete rock bottom. I had to go through, literally for me it was until the wheels fell off the wagon that I recognized, you know what? Maybe it's okay for me to be done and I can go do something else with my life now. And sometimes it takes that. For me, that's what it took.
Yeah. And I find that like very common in the workplace as well for a lot of people that might not be able to relate to professional football. It's like, at the end of the day, no matter what job you have, I mean, it's nothing against your coworkers or your boss or your company in general. It's just it is what it is. It's just like a very busy internationally competitive environment these days. And the second you can't perform, you could be there for like 20 years. And the second you fall behind on projects for like a week or two, they'll instantly be kind of probably giving you warnings and most likely firing you and then just finding someone else to replace you without a heartbeat. And then they'll probably forget that you're even there 3 weeks after you're gone. So I always tell people like then, you really got to just prioritize your mental and physical health and put that first because at the end of the day, that's all you really have.
Mm-hmm.
You can lose your job and you can lose that, but like for example, no matter what your goal is in life, whether it to be like anything, like how are you going to accomplish anything by being depressed, by having like extreme, clinical levels of low back pain, chronic levels of low back pain, or if you get cancer, hopefully not, or high blood pressure, which leads to about like 850,000 Americans dying every single year in just America alone. That's
Mm.
not even worldwide. So it's like you got to put your mental and physical health first because at the end of the day, like your company really doesn't care about you. Um, was there an aspect of your job that kind of kept you there because of the finances? Because a lot of people are like, well, I got to make money. That's why I'm killing myself for this job. That's why I can't leave, et cetera, et cetera. Was that a aspect for you? Or was it more of the belief system of, having that warrior mindset of never giving up, et cetera, et cetera?
There were some moments of that for sure. Um, there was definitely a moment after my 4 years in Jacksonville where I thought, I'm fucking done with this. And then the conversation was, well, it would be nice to get one more year of an NFL salary. So I went and took some workouts, and I had a great conversation with an old teammate, Brad Meester, who played 14 years for the Jags as a center. And he said to me, Ed, man, every year I think to myself, I'm done. And then I just give it one more year, take it one day at a time, and I find my love for it again, you know? He's like, maybe that happens for you. And so I had two workouts after Jacksonville. I became a free agent, had two workouts, one in Seattle, one in Chicago. Flew out to Seattle. It was great. They weren't ready to sign me. Flew back to Jacksonville. Like the next day, flew to Chicago, worked out for the Bears. And they went, Ed, we want to sign you. We love you. We think you could bring a lot of great energy here. We want to sign you. And I wasn't really sure I wanted that or not. However, it was impossible in that moment for me to turn that opportunity down. So I signed with the Bears. And what do you know? I ended up having my dream football season of all time. I was the sixth man, the swing tackle. I ended up developing a really nice spot for myself as a blocking tight end, as this monster tight end, and found my love for the game again. It was this magical season in Chicago. Chicago is one of the greatest sports towns in the history of the world. I mean, there's no better place to be a pro athlete than Chicago. And I was playing for the Bears. You know what I mean? It was pretty special. So I got to experience that love for the game that I had lost through so many years of just grinding it out. And then I came back for one more season with them. Was really, the magic was gone. I was highly in tune to the business of football, which is an ugly business. It's any corporate, like you're saying, Eugene, any corporate environment is totally fucked because it has no interest in the well-being of the people participating in it. You're simply a cog in the machine. And while there's a lot of good human beings there and people I love and guys that I have an immense amount of respect for, that's the system, that's the machine, you know. However, that being said, something that my first head coach in the NFL, Jack Del Rio, said, he would always say this, and it resonated with me big time as I got older. He said, man, if you're just here for a paycheck, it's going to be a fucking long road, bro. It's going to be a long season. It's going to be really hard. You got to love this shit. And that was the realization that last year in Chicago, my sixth season in the NFL, when I'm sitting in that film room and I'm going, what am I doing here? And I knew I wasn't there because I loved it and I enjoyed it anymore. I was there for something beyond that. And that was going to get me more hurt, going to get somebody else hurt, going to get me fucked up. So, you know, at some point you have to surrender that, man. The reality of your life and your well-being is more important than the paycheck, always. Has to be. And going back to your point, if you spend prolonged periods of time stressed, mentally and emotionally stressed, forget about physically stressed, you are living in a low state of fight or flight constantly. You're locked in your amygdala. You're probably mouth breathing. You're not getting good enough sleep. You're not taking good care of yourself. Your body is constantly in this low spew of adrenaline and cortisol and stress hormones. Inflammation is through the roof. And as we know, the root of all disease is inflammation, right? I mean, you are headed for a heart attack, cancer, a serious life is going to show you need to separate yourself from the doing one way or another. So the moment you're just doing the job just to make the money, just to collect the check for reasons outside of you enjoy it and you love it, and you're not going to love what you do all the time. I've turned my life into podcasting and teaching yoga and meditation and breath work and doing all this stuff. And there's an element always of you're always going to have to work hard. Your dreams, the vision of your life, the life that you desire to fruition, you're always going to have to work hard. There's no getting around that. God does not just drop everything into your lap for free. Nothing's for free. Everything, no matter what you're doing, is going to take hard work, persistence, patience, all of that. So while there's no getting around that, there is the truth of finding yourself in a place where you energetically, mentally, and emotionally hate what you're doing. It's not in alignment with where your life trajectory is supposed to be going, the universe, God's divine plan for your life. And so you have to adjust, and you have to be willing to adjust. And you have to be willing, and it's difficult because we really want to identify and attach ourselves to what we're doing. We want that. We want to be able to say, see, I'm doing something. I matter. I'm worthy. This is legitimate and valid. We want to be able to say that desperately. And we want to base that on, a lot of the times, because of the culture that we're brought up in, particularly in the West, we want to base that on what we do with our time and how we make money, how much money we make, and all of that shit. And at the end of the day, dude, when you're on your deathbed, nobody's going to give a fuck about how much money you made, especially
No.
you. It's not going to matter. What's going to matter? Did you fucking love the ride, dude? Do you feel fulfilled and complete with the journey you went on? That's what's going to matter. How many people are around you? How much love is in your life? That's what's going to matter.
Yeah, I think, remember The Great Gatsby, especially the movie they redid with Leonardo DiCaprio, when he was he always hosted these huge parties. But
Yeah.
remember, in his funeral, I think like two people showed up, or one
Yeah,
person showed
nobody
up.
shows up.
It was like the saddest. I remember that scene.
Dude,
It hurt me
Great
to see it.
Gatsby is a fucking trip, man. That's a heavy look at that, at the wealthy class of people of America, and that during that time, and it's still true. I mean, that's the truth. You know what I mean? It's yes, I can relate, and it's real, and that's true. No one gives a fuck, dude.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning into the podcast. I'm curious, have you ever been confused by the labels in the grocery store? In Yevgeny's book, he demystifies the difference between caged, cage-free, free-range, and pasture-raised meats. He also covers how to avoid GMOs, source high-quality water, fish, supplements, and other related topics. It's a beautifully illustrated, non-technical read that comes with a comprehensive video series and other extended learning materials. Jump on Amazon and check out the book titled Anti-Factory Farm Shopping Guide by Eugene Trufkin. Now let's dive back into the podcast.
Yeah. And which is, I think, like not a negative thing, because if no one gives a fuck, then just be yourself. You know,
1000%.
that's it. No one
Always.
cares anyways, regardless. If you be yourself, no one really cares at the end of the day. And if you don't be yourself, no one really cares at the end of the day. So it's like, dude, just be yourself, because the bigger the disconnect between who you are deep down inside, presumably you even did the deep soul searching to know, and who you're portraying yourself to be in the world for one reason or another, dude, the more physical and mental pain you're going to have in your life, like your entire life. No matter, you know, what your diet looks like or what this and that you're doing, the bigger the disconnect with that story gap, I promise you, the more insidious stress there's going to be on that central nervous system, like you mentioned. And the central nervous system isn't good with low-grade chronic stress. And that's exactly what you're bombarded with 24/7. You live with that 24/7 because you know you're being fake to yourself.
Exactly.
And there's no escaping that. And the longer that persists, the more maladaptive behavior that has to form to deal with that disconnect. It could be like drug abuse, food abuse as well, workaholism. A lot of people bury themselves and hide behind their work, you know, to not deal with the emptiness they feel inside, et cetera, et cetera. And you mentioned like a few important things which I feel go overlooked. And I know even the people on this podcast are going to hear this and literally not even pay attention to it. But look, you go to lunch with, like, you say it's you and 4 and 3 friends, right? 2 of your friends will get cancer in that group, and 1 will die from it. And 1 of them will die from a heart attack. So basically, out of the 4 of you, half of you, 2 of you will either die from a heart attack or cancer, which is startling. And I can guarantee you, especially with the heart attack issue, I mean, like 99% of those cases are just poor choices the person is making. It has really almost nothing to do with genetics. And the same with most cancers. You know, like 80% of cancers or more are just due to a lifestyle of poor lifestyle and nutritional choices over prolonged periods of time. It takes like a good solid 10 years to finally have cancer start forming in your body, of like abusing your body 24/7. So it's not like it happens like, I don't have cancer on Tuesday and then all of a sudden I have cancer on Wednesday. It's not like that fast or anything. And you also touched on another super important topic, which I feel could possibly be leading to a lot of these issues, but I feel it's like a blessing and a curse in disguise. Like, what's your take on the American dream and how it's almost like indirectly painted uh, to people? Like, it seems like these days, everything that's not important is what's advertised as important, and everything that is important is what's perceived as not important these days. Maybe people do say it is important to be like mentally or physically healthy, but then their actions speak the complete opposite. You see, like, they go on trips instead of hiring a health and wellness coach to help them with their 40 or 50 pounds of excess weight. They don't have money for the coach, but they for sure, like the average American has spends $8,000 to $16,000 a year on non-essential expenses, that most of which lead to their obesity and misery for the most part. And they for sure have money for that, and it totally goes under the radar. But hey, $3,000 for, a registered dietitian or like a health coach, or maybe taking one of your courses, that's too much,
Yeah. Well, I think for one thing, amazing. It is amazing to live in a country where you can create whatever fucking life you want. You can. The American dream, in my mind, is the ability, by activating yourself through your own free will, which you align with divine will, and you step into your purpose and you live from your heart center, and you can create whatever fucking life you desire. Whatever vision you have, grand vision you have for your life, you can make that happen. And while perhaps not as easy as it was, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, to do that, you still have every opportunity to create whatever life you want and do whatever the fuck you want to do to make that happen. That is an incredible blessing. Now, that being said, what is that? What is that? American dream. The house, white picket fence, 2.3 kids, a dog, a cat, and a marriage. You get a college degree, etc. Whatever the fuck that pathway is. What is that American dream? That's a different story, And we live in this really interesting time, man, where there are so many mind traps. We're bombarded with information. I was in the gym the other day doing the Stairmaster, and they have the TV on. And I'm listening to an audiobook, so I can't hear it, but I'm just watching the visuals on the TV, and it's ESPN, and they've got the ticker running on the bottom, and they've got the scores, they've got the sidebar of everything they're going to talk about. There's got the subtitles going because the sound is off, and it's like everything everybody's saying, and it's flashing between one talking head and another talking head, and then both talking heads, and then back to a shot of highlights of the game. And I'm like, my God, we're just bombarded with information. It's overwhelming. About what? What are we getting? Like what? Wow. Unbelievable how we lose ourselves in pro sports. I love sports. I made a life out of it. And wow, look at how we can distract ourselves from what's fucking real. It's overwhelming. You get on Instagram, there's TikTok, which I have a TikTok and I have a guy who runs it. I can't even begin to understand how people can spend any amount of time on TikTok. It's such noise. We're bombarded with noise that confuses and dilutes our energy.
Mm-hmm.
It confuses and dilutes our mental energy and fucking creates a lot of inner chaos,
Mm-hmm.
where we're going, wait, maybe Oh fuck, dude, I'm not good enough. I'm not doing it right. I don't have the car. Fuck, I don't have that house. Oh my God, I don't have the watch. Holy shit, those shoes? I don't have those shoes. Where do I get I need to have those shoes. If I don't have that car, I'm not fucking good enough. Oh my God, I haven't. Holy fuck. You wake up so discombobulated because of all this shit that isn't yours, that has nothing to do with the life that you're leading, that you're living, that you don't even really know where to begin. And that's why this shit is so important. That's why meditation is so important. That's why breath work is so fucking important. That's why exercise, tapping in to, first of all, taking care of this physical vehicle, taking care of this body, and making sure this body is in optimal function. You don't have to be a bodybuilder. You don't have to be a fucking Olympic athlete, but you need to have this body fit and ready and available and healthy. Have to. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Have to. We were built to move. We were built to breathe. We were built to hunt. We were built to thrive and live. Then you really have to take time. Because of the time that we live in, you have to take time to be still, to be quiet, to go inside. Have to. If you don't, it's going to be hard. There's a lot of noise, especially if you're like me. I'm a Libra. I'm an air sign. So you've got the four elements and you've got four planes of existence. You've got fire, spiritual, water, emotional, air, which is the mental, earth is the physical. So you can change and adapt any of those realms in your own planes, because we function on all these planes of existence. And if you're an air sign like me, if my mental, my mind goes, it'll spiral into the abyss over and over again. So I have to stay grounded. I have to do practices that ground me, that bring me into the ground, that ground all of that air mental energy that's happening. So for me in particular, and I think just for a lot of people, because it's so easy to get lost in the soup, the chaos soup of media and culture that's taking you every which way but the way you need to go, like you said, because it's all of this external bullshit that has nothing to do with actually attaining or experiencing fulfillment, contentment, well-being, etc. You have to have a spiritual practice, man. You have to have. And what's a spiritual practice? You have to have a connection with a higher power. You have to have a connection with your higher self. You have to tap in with yourself all the time. And it's got to be a practice. You could do that through exercise. You could do that through yoga, breath work, meditation. You have to. You have to be really conscious of what you're consuming. Food, information. You have to be very conscious of it. Because until you anchor into your center, until you anchor into your fucking center and know who you are, and you only do that through a lot of trial and error. You got to be on the field playing the game to learn, to know. You know, Carl Jung said it best. Experience without study is meaningless, and study without experience, meaningless. You need both. You've got to experience, you've got to play the game, and then you've got to study. And what does that mean? Study. It's like studying yourself. You need to study ancient work. You need to study those who have come before you, read good books, fill your mind with information that lifts you up. Because these books, there's millions of books that have been written throughout the history of humankind. All of them are filled with wisdom and insight of information that can help us on our journey. Because while I was in a yoga class, and one of the great medicines of my life is Bikram hot yoga. And it's brutal, man. It's absolutely brutal. More on that later. However, the teacher said something that was really profound. And she said, Luna, dang it.
It's okay. The price of working remote from home, you know.
I know, dude. I had this point. It was going to tie it all up.
Hot yoga, it's brutal.
Hot yoga is brutal. Study and experience and study. You have to have both. They go hand in hand. Man, I lost it. It was a good one. It was a good coaching point.
I'm sure you're going to remember
life.
The second we close out the live. You know,
of course.
That's how it always works. Do that every time. But you did mention a couple like super important points in terms of you kind of hinted in between the lines that people often, I think, in my opinion, and probably a lot of psychologists would agree that people these days oftentimes use electronics as a form of dissociation because the world is such a fast-paced environment these days, you know, and there's so much demand. Yeah, there's so much demand on them, and it's easy to just kind of space out and scroll through TikTok for like, you know, you're going to watch one or two videos and then you look up and it's like 2 hours later, you're like, shit, what happened? You know, kind of spaced out on that one. So I find that to be the case. And for sure, like, I totally agree with you. I personally think one of the best things someone can do to get this started is just stop watching the news, like all of it. And it doesn't make you, yeah, it doesn't even make you more informed. And even if the news was accurate, like, who cares? Like, are you gonna, you know, are you gonna go to Ukraine and fight the war there? No? Okay, then what's the point of watching it and learn? There are like a million things you can learn. There's no point of not saying it's not an important conflict to focus on, but I'm saying if you're not going to devote yourself to it and you have a lot of issues yourself going on, you should be focusing that energy on just figuring out what's going on in your corner. And I'm sure if a lot of people did that, there would just be a lot less problems in the world altogether, because a lot of people would be able to solve their own problems just from the get-go. And another, yeah, and then another important point you mentioned, and I'd like to get your input from your experience on here. I think just one of the best things people can do to oftentimes create lasting change is obviously work on changing their internal environment for sure, and how that internal environment interacts with the external environment. But oftentimes just the external environment these days is just not conducive to health and wellness in any way. Like a lot of corporate environments, I don't think are just conducive to health, mental or physical health in any way. All the social politics, the bureaucracy, sitting in front of a computer 10 to 12 hours a day. And if you're kind of in that environment, I think even if you have like a lot of good coaches in your corner, like the best you're going to do, honestly, is just damage control. Just like if you stayed in football, you can have the best PT guy, the best mental coach, but it's like, dude, the injuries are already there. You know what I mean? Especially intervertebral disc injuries. Those things take forever to heal, like honestly heal, not just get out of pain, but actually bristle over and solidify over time. What do you think? I mean, looking back now in retrospect, let's say, would have you been able to make all of these changes realistically if you stayed in an environment that inevitably created a lot of the problems that you're trying to run away from, you know? Or not run away from, but move away from, or whatever way you want to phrase it.
Maybe, however, the intuitive answer that arises when that question comes up is healing my inner state during my football career most likely would have led me out of football. Because playing football in and of itself was almost a symptom of the pain I had experienced as a child. So healing those wounds, I don't know. I don't really know if I would have had the same, or I would have been able to play the game the same way. I was always considered the most violent player on the field. You know, that's what got me to the NFL. I don't know if violence would have existed had I started healing the inner child, the wounds during my playing career. This is a question we would have to ask a guy like Tom Brady, although playing quarterback is a completely different thing than playing offensive line. You'd have to ask a guy who played, 15 plus years on the offensive line. Maybe Bruce Matthews would have an answer for us. What did he do to stay in the game for 20 years? I played for 6, and that felt like more than enough time on the field. I don't know if that makes sense. It took it. I don't know if I would have been, if it was possible to do that inner work, heal the insides, and still be able to play the game. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I find also, I mean, there are no absolutes to any of these statements, but sometimes there are genetic anomalies, like a person that's 5 or 6 standard deviations above the mean. Like, for example, like if, Elon Musk can work 100 hours a week, like I guarantee
Right.
you the average person would collapse under that pressure. And by average, I mean like probably 98% of people would collapse under the pressure, but they kind of presume that, well, he's a human being, I'm a human being, that means I could do it too. But really,
Right.
it's just like, no, you can't do it because there's just some genetic anomalies, just like not that many people are going to be as big as you, no
Right.
matter what they take or how they train or how much food they eat. They're just, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And there's that variability too. Um, but I don't know. It's always like a tricky balance because some people say like, oh, you just got to change your mindset and everything will work out. Well, true. I mean, it could play a big factor meeting it at that dimension, but at the same time, you have like a biological organism that has certain set rules that you have to follow. And if
Yeah.
those rules aren't followed, then the biological organism begins to break down. And because the mind, because the central nervous system obviously gives rise to the chemicals in your brain that gives rise to your consciousness. Obviously, as your biology begins to break down with like gut issues, anxiety issues, energy issues, whatever you want to put on the label, it's going to mess up your psychology to a degree. And the more of those red flags you have, the more your psychology is going to be messed up.
Yeah. 1,000%. I just remembered what my yoga teacher
Perfect.
said. So I was talking about it's important to read books, read good books, study, all of that, right? And we can look back through history at people who have come before us and the paths that they've led and how they've documented their experience, and we can learn from that on our own journey. And she said this thing that was incredible, that while we are like very unique, we're all very special and unique and divinely placed, like snowflakes in a way. We're all very intricate in our makeup, how we're put together, how we function, how we live, and yet we're also not special at all in another way. And whether you want to look at that from a physical perspective or the building blocks of DNA, etc., and how we're all similar there, we all share this commonality, which is not special, of suffering, of experiencing hardship. It might look different. It looks different for everybody, and the pain and the injuries may be different, the traumas may be different. However, we all have this commonality of suffering, and we can all learn from what each one of us has been through when it comes to how we've overcome that suffering and gotten to the other side of that experience, Anyway, and I think you're right. You're definitely right. There are, genetic anomalies. There are, physical specimens. Not everybody was gifted with a physical body that could take them through the NFL,
Mm-hmm.
or, the nervous system of Elon Musk that allows him this superhuman ability to work 100 hours. Maybe he's he's all fucked up inside. We don't know. You know, his nervous system could be completely fried.
Hmm.
However, he's doing that, you know,
Yeah.
and not everybody is capable of that. However, I would say that every single person has some unique ability.
Yes, I agree.
Something that they're especially gifted in. They're especially gifted with various tools that allow them the ability to do things that other people can't do. And much of the life process is discovering what those things are for you. I would say one of my gifts has been learning how to get the fuck out of the way so that God can move through me. That's been one of my gifts. How do I remove myself from the mind noise that's ever present so that divine, the universe, the highest intelligence can just speak and move through me? That's one of my gifts.
Do you have like any input on why people have a severe like aversion to a feeling of emptiness inside of them?
Mm.
I have a very good author that I'm going to bring up after I hear your explanation, but I was just wondering, I don't want to dilute that with saying my response first, but I was just wondering your point on it, because it seems like it's something to be avoided, you know what I mean, but not really kind of accepted. And
I think that's part of that ego trap. You know, we really want to be able to identify ourselves as something, as someone. You know, it's like Ram Dass says, you've got to become somebody before you can recognize that really you're nobody, or you allow yourself the opportunity to be nobody, which is essentially an instrument of God. And it's a scary thing, man. It's a scary thing. I've had conversations with clients where they're like, Ed, I was in meditation and I was doing this meditation and I fell into this super deep state where I literally got scared because I was basically free falling through nothing. There was nothing to hold on to. Like I touched that place where I no longer existed. And you could reach this place through meditation, through plant medicine, psychedelics, etc. And what's hilarious is that's the truth. Underneath all of the mind illusions about who we are and what we're supposed to be doing and how it's got to look, underneath all of that is this abyss, this infinite, eternal abyss where we all exist, where there is nothing to hold on to. You know what I mean? There's no ground beneath our feet. There's nowhere above us either. You're in this infinite abyss of nothingness, of emptiness.
Mhm.
And what a liberating place to be if you can tap into that and harness that, because that allows you this unfathomably incredible opportunity of being totally present and available to the moment. If that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. But the guy I was bringing up, I don't know if you've heard of him. It's like Stefan Wolinski. He's kind of like a popular. Sound familiar? Maybe no.
Yeah,
But
I've heard of him.
yeah, I mean, I really like his work. It's not for everyone, but I love his work personally. And he had like uh, it's pretty interesting. You mentioned like, oh, you know, like emptiness. It's so avoided, and it's oftentimes the source of a lot of people's like misery, anxiety, depression, physical ailments, et cetera, because people just misinterpret like a sense of energy or sensation that they interpret as emptiness instead of just interpret it as energy. And then they put labels on that emptiness. Oh, I feel empty because I'm like worthless, you know, and start building inferences upon that. And obviously, you know, concluding to yourself that you're worthless is painful, you know. So a person then spends their entire life trying to prove that wrong, in a sense of developing a personality that's worthy. So they're making money, having good academics, whatever, being good in athletics. It could take like a myriad of forms. And then the problem with that is that leads to, once again, a misalignment of core values. So you're getting further and further away from who you really are. And the more you accomplish, it's like the deeper you kind of dig your grave, you know, and the faster you work at it, the faster you dig that grave and the deeper you go. And then once those core values become misaligned, I got this from Czech, you know, people get into the wrong relationships, people get into the wrong careers, people, then that leads to maladaptive behavior, that leads to poor lifestyle and nutritional choices, and that leads to what, like depression, anxiety, fat gain, cancer in a long enough time frame, whatever, any ailment alive. But it always starts, if you tie it way back, kind of go back to where you came from, as Walensky would say, you would sense that like, oh, all you really do feel is just like a sense of energy, like in your body. And I'm kind of doing energy in quotations because it's really something that's not perceivable at all. And then you labeled that spaciousness, which has no meaning, as emptiness. You threw that label on there, but without you seeing that sensation, it's literally nothing. And if you see it as nothing because that's what it is, you can't be stressed out about it because it's nothing. It's just energy that comes into your body from what it seems like nowhere. And then if you give it enough time, it fades back into nowhere. And then a new sensation comes up, you know? I don't know if you read his work. I'm a really big fan, and I think it's really impactful.
I love that, dude. I love that. And I would tend to agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. But are there any other topics you want to cover that's on top of mind, or something that you've been focusing on these days?
I think that was it, man. I'm getting ready to head to the sauna here in a minute. But,
okay, cool. I went to the steam room earlier today.
Oh, I love it, dude. It's the best. Get in the heat, man.
Yeah.
Get in the heat as much as possible. No, but dude, I really appreciate this. We should jam again soon.
Yeah. Do you want to list any websites or contacts people can get a hold of you on, or any kind of lives you're doing or events you're hosting?
Yes, sir. So this Saturday, I'm doing a live ebb and flow event. It's virtual. There's a link in my bio. You can check it out. There's more info. You could register. It'll be 90 minutes. We'll do breath work. We'll do some yoga, and I'll take you through a guided meditation. So I'm doing those a couple times a month. And then my book, The Ebb and Flow: Basic Tools to Transform Your Life. That's a good, you know, that's the bedrock of where I came from and how I got to this place. That's also available at the link in my bio. And getting ready to relaunch my podcast, man, The Ebb and Flow.
Cool.
So when we're in the process of getting those episodes in the can. Where are you based, dude? Are you in Austin or?
Slightly outside of Austin, between Austin and San Antonio.
Oh, where?
I'll tell you in the messenger after. Sometimes you get weird people looking for you online. I'll send it to you in the messenger.
Okay, cool, man. Well, I'd love to do that. I'd love to have you on the Ebb and Flow.
Yeah, that would be great.
Jam there. That'd be a lot of fun. And that's it, man. I appreciate you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being on, taking time out of your day. And I appreciate everyone that joined as well, and have a good rest of the week, guys.
Thanks, brother.
Okay, take care, guys.
Thanks for tuning into the podcast. If you've ever had trouble losing weight, or you've lost weight, but still didn't have the ideal body or health you're aiming for, please feel free to reach out anytime and book an assessment. Eugene will work with you to cover your goals in detail, see what's holding you back, and go from there. In the meantime, feel free to check out the countless testimonials on Eugene's website in the link below. In the testimonial section, you'll notice everyone has various backgrounds, are of all different ages, and all have had different challenges in their life, but they all have one thing in common: they were all able to find their health and achieve their ideal body. You're also welcome to add yourself to the Facebook group in the link below. There you'll have access to the live videos that Eugene does weekly on Sundays, and other helpful content. Thank you again for tuning in.